Who am I speaking with?
Hello, my name's Simon Wardley. I'm a researcher for the Leading Edge Forum, and I specialize in the area of how you organize IT for the future.
Well, specifically, you teach companies how to do battle with each other, and that's why I'm turning the camera on. IT for the future, you're going to bore everyone to death. So explain what it is that you do.
So, it's one element of this is organizational warfare. So to explain this, first of all, we have to look at how activities evolve in business. All activities run through a common life cycle of innovation, custom-built products to commodities with overlaying domains of rental and utility services. So if you look at something like cloud computing is simply a shift of a bunch of activities from the product to the utility service world. And that creates all sorts of benefits and risks, but most interestingly, it accelerates the innovation of new activities. Now, when you look at a company is a mass of activities. IT isn't one thing, and you can, by looking at the life cycle and the frequency of activities at different stages of the life cycle, you can create a profile for a company. And what that means, it has a lot of impacts in terms of how you manage things. For example, those activities which are in the innovation, the custom-built stage, are what we call chaotic. They're constantly changing, deviating, serendipity matters a lot, potential future source of worth. Whereas those activities in the commodity stage are much more linear, they're repeated throughout industry, standardized, more of a cost of doing business. And when you look at things like project management, things like Six Sigma, brilliant for the commodity, sucks for the innovation. Agile, brilliant for the innovation, sucks at the commodity. And this creates what is known as the innovation paradox. And whenever within a company you apply one size fits all, you're either risking survival today or survival tomorrow. Now there's a whole host of...
So let's talk about that survival today and survival tomorrow. We were talking about there's tons of companies that have done extraordinarily well, but just can't shift for the future because of where they are. Like I mentioned telcos.
Okay. So, a number of different problems. Most of them are related to organization, how we structure ourselves. Some are cultural. But one of the big ones you're hitting on there is what is known as inertia. So many companies very successful in a particular domain, such as the product domain, that actually creates a huge inertia barrier for them to change. This is why the first companies doing utility computing wasn't a hosting provider, it was a book company, because it wasn't pre-encumbered by the existing model. And the same with, if you look at something like Salesforce, which in effect is taking CRM from a product or more utility service stage. It can get away with this with these big incumbents in the product world because they have huge inertia barriers. Their own success or past success inhibits their future, and that's often a very difficult thing to overcome.
So let's get into, how do you actually do warfare? How does that manifest itself?
There are a number of different techniques, for example, that you can use. Ecosystems are a key area. For example, when you're developing a service, you want to provide utility services, create a large ecosystem, encourage innovation in the ecosystem, because that reduces your cost of innovation, reduces the cost of gambling, increasing efficiency, and that's a powerful weapon to use against another company. Equally, you can out-commoditize somebody else. So in the infrastructure space, you've got Amazon building up with a very large ecosystem. They're running what is known as an innovate, leverage, commoditize model. And you've got open source attempting to disrupt that to even more commoditize it with an open source play, creating an open source environment with multiple different providers, all based around a common reference model. There's other tactics like the tower and moat. And the tower and moat is one where you create a core revenue stream, and around it you create a moat devoid of differential value. And you can see that Salesforce does that, buying up things like Radian 6, so that when its competitors in the product world eventually wake up and realize they have to be in this utility service world, there's an incumbent there and there's little room to differentiate. All these sorts of techniques, how you organize yourself, methods you use, how you use open source, how you use ecosystems, tower and moat, are all techniques which you can use for one company fighting in the battle against another, because we are all in competition, and that's, at the end of the day, what it's all about.